He's just a placeholder. I'm keeping him until someone better shows up.
No need to wait, Talia. I'm right here.
My face went pale as I heard my wife's voice through the thin apartment wall. Not because she was hurt. Hell, that would have been easier to deal with. No, Talia was perfectly fine, chatting away on speakerphone with her mother like she didn't have a care in the world. He's just a placeholder, Mom. I'm keeping him around until someone better shows up. Someone with real money, not some burnt-out ambulance jockey who smells like disinfectant and other people's problems. I stood there in my paramedic uniform, still stained from a 12-hour shift, pulling idiots out of car wrecks, and felt my world collapse faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. 3 years of marriage, and apparently I'd been auditioning for the role of temporary husband this whole time. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days saving lives, and here I was discovering mine was nothing but an elaborate lie. I pushed open the bedroom door, watching Talia's face transform from casual cruelty to deer-in-headlights panic. Her phone was still on speaker, her mother's voice crackling through. "Well, just make sure you don't wait too long, darling. You're not getting any younger." "No need to wait, Talia," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'm right here." She fumbled for the phone, nearly dropping it in her haste to end the call. "Julian, I can explain." "Explain what? That our entire marriage has been you settling for less while shopping for something better?" I pulled out my own phone, took a screenshot of her call log. 23 calls to her mother this week alone. How long have these little strategy sessions been going on? Talia's face went through more changes than a traffic light. Panic, guilt, defiance, then back to panic. She looked like a runway model who'd just tripped in front of the cameras, all that practiced perfection cracking at the seams. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," she started, but my phone buzzed with a text from Sam, my partner at the fire station. "You need to see something." The attached photo was blurry but clear enough. Talia and some guy in an expensive suit entering what looked like a penthouse building. The timestamp showed yesterday evening, when she'd told me she was working late at the boutique. I held up the phone so she could see it. "Who's this, Talia? Your upgrade?" The color drained from her face completely now. "That's just Brian from work. He's helping me with some real estate investments." "Real estate investments?" I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. "Is that what we're calling it now?" My phone rang. Sam calling. I answered on speaker. "Julian, man, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but I saw your wife at Chez Laurent last night. She was all over some guy in a Tesla. They were, well, they weren't discussing business, if you know what I mean." Talia's eyes went wide. "Sam, you don't know what you're talking about. Actually, Talia, I've got 20/20 vision and a pretty good understanding of what cheating looks like." Sam's voice was cold. "Julian, you need to get out of there. Come to my place." I looked at my wife, ex-wife really, though the paperwork hadn't caught up yet, and felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, burning like acid in my chest, but underneath it was something else. Something that felt like the moment before I had to make a serious decision in the back of an ambulance. "You know what, Talia? You're right about one thing. You deserve better than a placeholder." I started pulling clothes from our dresser, shoving them into a duffel bag. "And I deserve better than someone who thinks I'm just keeping her seat warm." "Julian, please, we can work this out." "Work what out? The fact that you've been lying to me for God knows how long? The fact that you and your mother have been planning my replacement like I'm a broken appliance?" I grabbed our wedding photo from the nightstand, looked at it for a moment, then dropped it in the trash. The glass cracked with a satisfying sound. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, pulling off my wedding ring and tossing it onto the bed. "I'm leaving. You can keep the apartment. It's in your name anyway, right? Smart planning on your part." Talia was crying now, but I wasn't sure if it was from guilt or just panic at being caught. "Where are you going?" "To stay with someone who actually gives a damn about me." I shouldered my bag and headed for the door. Oh, and Talia? You might want to call your mother back. Tell her the placeholder just quit. As I walked out, I did one last thing. I opened our family group chat, the one with Talia's parents, her sister Mia, and her grandmother, and sent screenshots of everything. The call log, the photo Sam had sent, and a simple message: ask Talia about Brian. My phone started buzzing immediately, but I was already in the hallway, walking away from 3 years of my life and toward whatever came next. Sam's apartment smelled like pizza and motor oil, which was somehow more comforting than the designer candles and expensive perfume that had filled my old place. He handed me a beer and sat down across from me, his weathered face serious. So what's the plan, brother? Plan? I took a long drink. I'm thinking step 1 is getting spectacularly drunk. Step 2 is figuring out how to afford my own place on a paramedic's salary. That's not what I meant, and you know it. Sam leaned forward. This Brian guy, he's got money, drives a Tesla, takes your wife to fancy restaurants. You're the guy who runs into burning buildings and saves lives. There's gotta be something you can do with that. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Talia's mother, Lila. I almost declined, then decided I wanted to hear this. Julian, dear, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Lila. I heard you loud and clear. Your daughter married beneath herself, and you've been coaching her through finding someone better. Now, let's not be rash. Think about your future. I laughed. Oh, I am, just not the one you're picturing. What's that supposed to mean? It means your daughter just lost the best thing that ever happened to her, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. I hung up and looked at Sam. You know what? You're right. I do have something Brian doesn't. What's that? A reputation as someone who saves people, someone trustworthy, a hero. I pulled up Talia's Instagram account, scrolled through months of photos. Her at fancy restaurants, designer boutiques, charity galas, all funded by my steady paycheck while she played at being a socialite. Time to show everyone what their golden girl really thinks of the little people. The next morning, I put my plan into action. First stop, Goldman's Jewelry, where I'd bought Talia's engagement ring 3 years ago. Mrs. Goldman remembered me. I'd saved her grandson from a drug overdose 2 years back. Julian, how are you, dear? How's married life? Actually, Mrs. Goldman, that's why I'm here. I pulled out the ring I'd retrieved from the apartment while Talia was at work. I need to return this. Her face fell. Oh, honey, what happened? Turns out my wife thinks I'm just a placeholder until someone with more money comes along. Her words, not mine. I placed the ring on the counter. I was hoping you could help me turn this into something positive. Mrs. Goldman examined the ring, then looked up at me with fire in her eyes. That girl never deserved you. This ring is worth $8,000. Full refund, and I'm throwing in a little something extra. What do you mean? She smiled. I mean, I'm calling my friend at Channel 7. They love stories about local heroes getting a raw deal. 20 minutes later, I walked out with a check and a promise that my story would be on the evening news. But I wasn't done yet. I drove to Mercy General, where I'd worked plenty of overtime shifts, and found Dr. Martinez in the break room. Julian, I heard about you and Talia. I'm sorry, man. Thanks, Doc. Actually, I wanted to make a donation to the burn unit. Anonymous, but I thought you should know it's coming from someone who understands what real heroes look like. I handed him a check for $4,000, half the ring money. I've got some vacation time saved up. Mind if I take a few weeks to get my life sorted out? Of course. Take all the time you need. By evening, my phone was blowing up. The news story had aired, and suddenly I was the heroic paramedic betrayed by his socialite wife. The reporter had done her homework. They showed clips of me at various emergency scenes, interviewed colleagues who called me one of the good ones, and then contrasted it with photos of Talia at expensive restaurants and charity events. The kicker was the interview with Mrs. Goldman, who'd somehow gotten hold of some very unflattering details about Talia's spending habits and attitude toward working-class people. "That young man saved my grandson's life," she'd told the camera. "He's a real hero, not like these fake society types who think they're better than everyone else." Sam called me, laughing. "Dude, you're trending on social media. Real hero, not a placeholder. This is beautiful." But the best part came an hour later, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Julian Martinez?" "Speaking. This is Rebecca Chen from Talia's boutique. I wanted to personally apologize for my employee's behavior and let you know that we've received several calls from clients expressing their disappointment in her character. We pride ourselves on working with people of integrity." I could read between the lines. Talia's job was in jeopardy. "I appreciate the call, Ms. Chen, but I don't want anyone to lose their job over this." "Of course. You're very gracious. That just proves what everyone is saying about you." After I hung up, Sam raised his beer in a toast. "To Julian Martinez, who's about to learn that sometimes the best revenge is just telling the truth." But as I scrolled through the social media posts, hundreds of people calling Talia everything from a gold digger to a heartless witch, I realized the truth was just the beginning. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over. You have no idea what you've started." I showed Sam the message. He frowned. "Think that's from Talia?" "No," I said. "Screenshot the message. That's not her style. I think I just met Brian." The next morning brought a surprise I hadn't expected. I was grabbing coffee near the fire station when I spotted a familiar Tesla parked outside. Bright red, pristine, with vanity plates reading Closser 1. Subtle as a brick through a window. Brian was leaning against it, looking like he'd stepped out of a men's magazine. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of confident smile that probably closed million-dollar deals. He was also blocking my truck. "You must be Julian," he said, extending a manicured hand. "Brian Patterson. I think we need to talk." I looked at his hand, then back at his face. "Not really. I think you've said everything that needs saying. Look, I understand you're upset, but Talia and I are none of my business anymore." I walked around him toward my truck. "Move your car. She never loved you, you know." His voice had lost that fake friendliness. "She told me all about your little marriage, how you bored her, how she had to pretend to be interested in your small-time hero complex." I stopped walking. "Is that right?" "She's with me now. Has been for months. You were just a placeholder. Yeah, I heard." I turned around, looked him up and down. "Tell me something, Brian. Does Talia know about Mia?" His confident expression flickered, just for a second, but I caught it. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Mia, Talia's sister. Blonde, about 5'6", works at that art gallery downtown." I pulled out my phone, scrolled through some photos Sam had sent me the night before. Funny thing about having friends all over the city. They see things. The photo was clear enough. Brian and Mia coming out of the Riverside Hotel, her hand on his chest, his arm around her waist. The timestamp showed last Tuesday, the same day Talia had been texting him about their dinner plans. Brian's face went white. "Where did you get that? Does it matter? What matters is that you're cheating on the woman you stole from me, with her own sister." I put the phone away. "How's that for irony? You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You're exactly the kind of guy who'd sleep with two sisters and think you're clever enough to keep them from finding out." I stepped closer. "But here's what you don't understand. I'm not the same guy I was a week ago. That guy cared about being the bigger person. This guy thinks the truth should be shared." Brian grabbed my arm. "You can't tell her." I looked down at his hand on my uniform sleeve, then back up at his face. "Can't I? I'll ruin you. I've got connections, money, and I've got nothing left to lose. See, that's the difference between us, Brian. You're afraid of losing what you've got. Me, I already lost everything that mattered. That makes me dangerous." I shook off his hand and got in my truck. As I drove away, I could see him in my rearview mirror, pulling out his phone with shaking hands. That afternoon, I paid a visit to Lexi Morrison, a local social media influencer who'd shared my story the day before. She ran a popular Instagram account called City Secrets that exposed cheating spouses and corrupt businesses. Her followers ate up drama like it was candy. "Julian," she hugged me like we were old friends. "I'm so glad you called. Your story has been my most popular post this month." "I've got an update for you," I said, showing her the photos. "Turns out the guy who stole my wife is also cheating on her, with her sister." Lexi's eyes lit up. "This is perfect. A love triangle with sisters? My followers will go crazy." "There's more." I pulled up Talia's call logs, the screenshots of her texts with Brian. "I've got proof of everything, the whole timeline." "How did you get all this?" "She left her iCloud logged in on our shared iPad. Funny how people forget about the little things when they're busy planning betrayals." Within 2 hours, Lexi had crafted a masterpiece. A detailed timeline of the affair, photos of Brian with both sisters, screenshots of Talia's texts calling me a placeholder, and audio from a voicemail Talia had left her mother. "I never loved him, Mom. He was just safe, you know? Someone who looked good on Instagram while I figured out my real future." The post exploded. Within 6 hours, it had been shared over 3,000 times. The comments were brutal. People calling Talia everything from a heartless witch to a fake socialite, while Brian was labeled a predator and sister-stealing snake. But the real damage came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Harper, the elderly woman who lived next door to Brian's penthouse, had apparently been documenting his revolving door of women for months. She'd sent Lexi a folder of photos showing Brian with at least 6 different women over the past 3 months, including both Talia and Mia. "He's been running a regular escort service up there," Mrs. Harper had written. "Different girl every night, loud music, parties until all hours. I've been keeping records for the building management." By evening, my phone was ringing nonstop. Reporters, friends, even some of Talia's former clients who wanted to share their own stories about her attitude and behavior. But the call that mattered most came from Mia herself. "Julian, it's Mia. I saw the posts online. I'm sorry you had to find out that way." "Are you? Because it feels like you wanted maximum humiliation." "You're right. I did. No point in lying now. Your sister destroyed my life for entertainment. Your boyfriend destroyed my marriage for sport. I figured turnabout was fair play." There was a long pause. "He told me he wasn't serious about Talia, said she was just a client who got too attached." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to." Her voice was small. "God, I'm such an idiot." "No, you're just the other victim here. Brian's the predator, and Talia made her choices. She's been calling me all day, screaming about how I ruined her life, like I'm the one who posted those photos." "Did you tell her the truth about you and Brian?" "I couldn't. She's my sister." "Was. She was your sister. Now she's just another person who thought she could use people without consequences." After I hung up, Sam came over with Chinese takeout and beer. We sat in his living room, scrolling through the social media carnage. "Jesus, Julian, look at this." He showed me his phone. Talia's boutique just posted that they're reviewing their staffing decisions, and Brian's real estate company put out a statement about maintaining professional standards. "Good," I said, and meant it. They both thought they were untouchable. Time they learned different. My phone buzzed with another unknown number. "You've made a big mistake. This won't end well for you." I showed Sam the message. He shook his head. "Guy just doesn't know when to quit." "Oh, he'll learn," I said, already planning my next move. "They both will." The confrontation I'd been expecting came 3 days later, but not from who I thought. I was leaving the grocery store when I spotted Tom and Jennifer Walsh walking toward me across the parking lot. They'd been our couple friends for 2 years. Double dates, barbecues, game nights. I'd considered them close friends. The expressions on their faces told me everything I needed to know before they said a word. "Julian," Tom said, his voice cold. "We need to talk." "About what?" Jennifer crossed her arms. "About this public humiliation campaign you're running against Talia." I almost laughed. "Humiliation campaign? Is that what we're calling telling the truth now?" "You're destroying her life," Jennifer snapped. "She's lost her job, her reputation. She destroyed her own life when she decided to cheat on her husband and call him a placeholder." I shifted my grocery bags, studying their faces. "But I'm guessing you already knew about the affair, didn't you?" Tom and Jennifer exchanged a look that confirmed my suspicions. "We knew she was unhappy," Tom said carefully. "Marriage is complicated." Complicated? The word came out harsher than I'd intended. She was planning to leave me for months, possibly years, while spending my money and lying to my face. You knew about it and said nothing. That's not complicated, that's betrayal. "We didn't want to get involved in your personal business," Jennifer said. "But you're involved now, aren't you? Coming here to defend her, to make me feel guilty for exposing what she did." I set my bags down, really looking at them for the first time. "How long have you known?" "Julian." "How long?" Tom sighed. 6 months. Maybe longer. 6 months. I nodded slowly. 6 months of dinners where you sat across from me, knowing my wife was cheating. 6 months of game nights where you watched me talk about our future together, knowing she was planning to leave me. 6 months of lies. "It wasn't our place," Jennifer started. "It wasn't your place to be honest with someone you called a friend? To give me a heads up that my marriage was a joke?" I picked up my bags again. "You know what? You're right. It wasn't your place. Just like it's not your place to come here and lecture me about my response to being betrayed by everyone I trusted." "Talia made mistakes," Tom said. "But what you're doing is cruel." "Cruel?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to know what's cruel? Having your wife tell her mother you're just a placeholder while you're working double shifts to pay for her lifestyle? Having your friends know your marriage is a lie and saying nothing? Having people you trusted make you look like a fool for months? We were trying to protect you. No, you were protecting yourselves. You didn't want the drama of getting involved, so you let me live in ignorance while everyone else knew the truth." I started walking toward my truck. "Well, now everyone knows the truth, including me." "Julian, wait." I turned back. "You know what the funny thing is? I actually feel sorry for you two. Because if you can watch a friend get betrayed and do nothing, if you can sit by while someone you care about gets humiliated and stay silent, then you're not really friends to anyone. You're just people who happen to know each other. That's not fair." "Fair?" I shook my head. Nothing about this has been fair, but at least now it's honest. I got in my truck and drove away, leaving them standing in the parking lot. But I wasn't done with confrontations for the day. That evening, I got a call from Mike Rodriguez, another friend from our old group. He wanted to meet at O'Malley's, the bar where we used to watch football games together. I found him at our usual table, nursing a beer and looking uncomfortable. 3 other guys were with him, David, Steve, and Marcus, all part of our regular crew. "Julian," Mike said as I sat down, "thanks for coming. Let me guess, you're here to tell me I'm being too hard on Talia." "We're here because we're worried about you," David said. "This whole revenge thing, it's not like you." "You're right. The old me would have quietly divorced her and moved on. The old me cared about being the bigger person." I signaled the bartender for a beer, but the old me also trusted people who didn't deserve it. "Look," Steve said, "we all know what Talia did was wrong. Do you? Because Tom and Jennifer knew about it for 6 months and said nothing. Makes me wonder who else in our little group was keeping secrets." The uncomfortable looks they exchanged told me everything. "Jesus Christ," I said. All of you? It's not that simple, Marcus started. It's exactly that simple. My wife was cheating on me, planning to leave me, calling me a placeholder behind my back, and every single one of you knew about it. I stood up, threw a 20 on the table. How many times did you guys laugh about it? How many times did you sit around talking about poor, stupid Julian who had no idea his wife was shopping for an upgrade? We never laughed, Mike said. But you talked about it. You all knew, and you let me keep making a fool of myself. I looked around the table at faces I'd trusted, people I'd considered brothers. You know what the worst part is? I would have done anything for any of you. If your wives were cheating, if you were in trouble, if you needed help, I would have been there. But when I needed you to be honest with me, when I needed real friends, you all chose to protect yourselves instead. We were trying to spare you. Spare me what? The truth? The chance to make my own decisions about my life? I shook my head. You weren't sparing me anything. You were sparing yourselves the discomfort of getting involved. David stood up. So what? We're all supposed to be enemies now because we didn't want to blow up your marriage? My marriage was already blown up. You just helped Talia keep me in the dark about it. I looked at each of them one more time. We're not enemies. We're nothing, because real friends don't let each other live in lies. I walked out of O'Malley's knowing I'd never be back. Not with them, anyway. But as I got to my truck, my phone rang. Sam's number. Julian, where are you? Just left O'Malley's. Why? You need to get over here, now. Talia's at my apartment and she's not alone. What do you mean, not alone? She brought Brian, and they're both drunk and pissed off and making threats. I started the engine. I'll be right there. Julian, be careful. They're talking about pressing charges, saying you've been harassing them. Let them try, I said, and meant it. I'm just getting started. When I pulled up to Sam's apartment complex, I could hear shouting from the parking lot. Talia's voice, shrill and angry, mixed with Brian's deeper tones and Sam's attempts to calm them down. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered, some recording with their phones. Perfect. I climbed the stairs to Sam's second-floor apartment and found the door open. Talia was pacing in the living room like a caged animal, her usually perfect hair disheveled, her designer clothes wrinkled. Brian stood near the window, his expensive suit rumpled, his face flushed with alcohol and anger. Sam looked relieved when he saw me. Thank God. They've been here for 20 minutes demanding to know where you live. Why would they want to know that? I asked, though I had a pretty good idea. Talia spun around when she heard my voice. Her eyes were red-rimmed, whether from crying or drinking I couldn't tell. You snake, you destroyed everything. I told the truth. There's a difference. The truth? She laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. You made me look like a monster. I didn't make you do anything. You cheated on me, called me a placeholder, and planned to leave me while spending my money. All I did was share the evidence. Brian stepped forward, swaying slightly. You think you're so smart, don't you? The righteous hero getting his revenge. I think I'm a guy who got tired of being lied to. Well, here's a truth for you, Talia said, pulling out her phone. I recorded our last conversation, the one where you threatened to ruin my life. I never threatened you. That's not how it sounded to me. She held up the phone. I've got you saying you'd make sure everyone knew what kind of person I really was. That sounds like harassment to me. Sam moved closer to me. Julian, maybe we should... No, I said, pulling out my own phone. Let's talk about recordings, because I've got some interesting ones too. I scrolled through my audio files, found the one I wanted. Talia's voice filled the room, crystal clear. I never loved him, Mom. He was just safe, you know? Someone who looked good on Instagram while I figured out my real future. The closeness was boring, he has no ambition, and he smells like other people's problems. But he paid the bills while I built my real life. The color drained from Talia's face. Where did you get that? You left a voicemail on your mother's phone. She accidentally called me back while playing it. I switched to another file. But that's not the best one. This time, it was Brian's voice. The paramedic? Jesus, Talia, you really slummed it with that one. Don't worry. Once we're together officially, you'll never have to pretend to care about saving lives and helping people again. That whole hero worship thing is so middle class. Brian lunged toward me, but Sam stepped between us. Easy there, golden boy. You recorded private conversations, Talia said. That's illegal. Actually, it's not. You left voicemails on phones that belong to other people. Once you do that, they become the property of the recipient. I smiled. Funny how the law works, isn't it? You're sick, she said. This whole revenge fantasy is sick. You want to know what's sick? Lying to someone for months while planning to leave them. Using their money to fund your lifestyle while shopping for their replacement. Calling them a placeholder while they work double shifts to pay for your designer clothes. I looked at both of them. But you're right about one thing. This is a fantasy. Your fantasy that you could treat people like garbage and never face consequences. Brian pulled out his own phone. I'm calling the police. This is harassment. Go ahead, I said. Call them. Let's have a nice public conversation about who's been harassing whom. I'm sure they'd love to hear about how you've been stalking me, threatening me, and showing up at my friend's apartment drunk and belligerent. We came here to talk. You came here to intimidate me. There's a difference. I looked around the room, at the neighbors still recording from the hallway, at Sam standing ready to back me up, at my ex-wife and her boyfriend looking increasingly desperate. But you know what? I'm glad you're here, because I've got something to tell you both. I pulled up a new audio file on my phone. This is from yesterday. A conversation between Brian and Mia, Talia's sister, the one he's also been sleeping with. Don't, Brian started, but I was already hitting play. Mia's voice filled the room. She has no idea, does she? About us? Brian's response, none, and it's going to stay that way. Talia's got money and connections. You're just fun. Talia's face went through several emotions at once. Shock, hurt, rage, and finally a cold fury that made her look like a completely different person. You bastard, she whispered, turning to Brian. You told me I was the only one. Talia, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been sleeping with my sister while telling me you loved me? That I destroyed my marriage for someone who thinks I'm just a meal ticket? The irony wasn't lost on me. Talia was experiencing exactly what I'd felt a week ago, the crushing realization that someone you trusted had been lying to you all along. Now you know how it feels, I said quietly. She turned back to me, tears streaming down her face. I hate you. I know, but at least now you hate me for telling the truth instead of hating me for being boring and middle class and not good enough for your grand plans. Brian was backing toward the door. I should go. Yes, you should, Sam said. Before I decide to show these nice people with the cameras what happens when someone threatens my best friend. This isn't over, Brian said, but his voice lacked conviction. Yeah, it is, I replied. It's been over since the moment you decided to mess with someone who had nothing left to lose. As Brian stumbled out, Talia collapsed onto Sam's couch, sobbing. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Why? She asked through her tears. Why did you have to destroy everything? I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped pretending it was real. I put my phone away. You made your choices, Talia. You chose to cheat, to lie, to treat our marriage like a joke. I just made sure there were consequences. I loved you, she whispered. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me, the stable, reliable guy who'd pay your bills while you figured out your real future. But you never loved me. I looked at her one last time. And you know what? That's okay. Because I finally realized I deserved better than someone who thought love was a placeholder until something better came along. I turned to Sam. "I'll be at the truck." As I walked out, I could hear Talia still crying, the neighbors whispering, phones still recording. Tomorrow, this would be all over social media. The final chapter in the story of the paramedic who fought back. But for the first time in a week, I felt something other than anger or hurt. I felt free. Sam joined me at the truck 5 minutes later. "She's gone. Called an Uber." "Good. You know this really is over now, right? You got your revenge. You exposed them both. Everyone knows the truth." I nodded. "Yeah, it's over." "So what now?" I looked up at the apartment building, where lights were still on and people were still talking about what they'd witnessed. Tomorrow there would be new stories, new drama, new betrayals. But mine was finished. "Now I figure out what comes next," I said, without placeholders, without lies, without people who think I'm not good enough. "You know you're better than all of them, right?" "I'm starting to figure that out." As we drove away, my phone buzzed with notifications. Social media posts, news requests, messages from people who'd seen the videos from tonight. The story of Julian Martinez, the paramedic who refused to be a placeholder, was going viral again. But I didn't check the messages. I didn't need to see the comments or read about how Talia and Brian were being dragged online. I'd gotten what I came for, the truth, exposed for everyone to see. And sometimes, that's the best revenge of all. 6 months later, I was working a shift when we got called to a car accident on the interstate. Drunk driver, multiple vehicles involved, one person trapped. As I worked to stabilize the victim, I realized it was someone I recognized. Brian Patterson, unconscious and bleeding, his red Tesla wrapped around a concrete barrier. For a moment, I hesitated. This was the man who'd helped destroy my marriage, who'd threatened me, who'd treated me like I was nothing. Then I remembered who I was. Not the bitter ex-husband, not the guy seeking revenge. I was a paramedic, someone who saves lives even when those lives belong to people who don't deserve it. I spent the next 20 minutes keeping Brian alive until we got him to the hospital. He never knew it was me, never knew that the man he'd tried to destroy was the one who saved his life. Later, when my shift ended, I sat in my truck and thought about irony, about second chances and karma, and the difference between justice and revenge. I never saw Talia again. Heard through the grapevine that she'd moved back in with her parents, was working at a department store, had given up her dreams of being a socialite. Mia had apparently cut all contact with both of them. As for me, I'd been promoted to senior paramedic, had started dating a nurse from the hospital who thought my job was heroic instead of embarrassing, and had moved into a place of my own. I was no longer anyone's placeholder, and that was the best revenge of all.